Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Ensing. We are doing a special live broadcast of CBC Windsor News at 6. Tonight we are in Leamington, one of two communities left in Ontario stuck in stage 1, Kingsville the other. Some of the only places in Canada where businesses have not been eased of those restrictions caused by COVID-19 as the community continues to deal with this pandemic.
We're in a horrible situation right now.
I need to be the calm in this storm.
Business owners say they're scared. Municipal officials, they're trying to lead. Leamington and Kingsville left stuck in stage 1 of reopening, and it likely won't change unless numbers in the agri-food sector get under control. And there is more pressure being put on the federal government to take action to protect the workers on these farms as mayors keep pushing for more testing and better isolation measures. And once again, a special look at the issues tonight here on CBC Windsor. We are live in Leamington, where the vibe is very much one of disappointment. Places across Windsor-Essex were able to reopen, but not Leamington and Kingsville this Friday. Now, taking a look at the businesses that are most affected by all of this is the CBC's Jacob Barker, who's been following this story all along for us. Social distancing in effect. Jacob staying a couple distances away from us here. You were driving in today to the city. What did you see?
Yeah, well, Chris, we have seen those patios open back up in Windsor and most of Essex County, but here in Leamington and in Kingsville, where I was today, they're still shut. That doesn't mean those businesses don't want to open. In fact, they're clamoring to open. They say they're ready to open. Those that I spoke with, some of them are understanding of why the province has decided to keep this area in stage 1, and others think that now is the time to open.
Well, scenes like this have become a thing of the past in the rest of the province. Here in Kingsville, empty patios are still very much a reality. For restaurant owners that have been waiting to open for months now, staying in stage 1 hasn't been an easy pill to swallow.
We're in dire straits. We're desperately seeking our governments to, at all levels, municipal, provincial, and federal, to help us with this situation.
The situation on farms and greenhouses with high numbers of workers testing positive here and in Leamington prompted the province to hold them back. These businesses have taken huge losses and were perhaps seeing a light at the end of the tunnel as the rest of the province started moving into reopening. In what's usually a peak season for them, they're left waiting. Some may not be able to hold out.
Ultimately, we want resolution to the problem. That's first and foremost, and we want it resolved in a safe fashion, but we need to get open. If we don't, we are going to see you're going to see several of the businesses in town, if not all of them, if it lasts long enough, literally go out of business.
Another patio just down the street is ready to go as well.
Do I think it would be packed? Yeah, I do.
The owner here understands why the closure is in place, but says they're ready to open their doors and ready to do it safely.
There had to be a reason that they saw, that they felt at this point in time we're not ready. But I guess my question is what are you doing to help us be ready? Because all of us, not just my restaurant or other restaurants in Kingsville, we have hairstylists, barbers, breweries, hotels, even retailers that are just barely open. We need to be open.
And you can hear, Jacob, really in that story, just that frustration and what people thought was going to happen, but clearly hasn't yet. But not just restaurants and salons. You were speaking to other businesses as well.
Yeah, actually I spoke with hotels, and of course hotels are deemed essential and they're allowed to stay open, but it doesn't mean it's easy to be open at a time like this. I stopped and spoke with one of the owners of the Grove Hotel, who told me she is picking up bookings, but she's also seeing cancellations, and people, try to have that conversation with the customer where you have to explain to them why this region is being held in stage 1 and what it means. They can't just go down the street to a restaurant. They have to go out of the city to do that. So she is worried that there might be a stigma attached to this, a lasting one.
They're questioning why our community has been left behind. And you get the sense like, well, it must be really bad in Kingsville and Leamington. And you know, when we try to encourage them to, you know, visit outside of this community, the wineries are open, or places in Essex or Windsor are open. They always have that sense of like, so I can drive 10 minutes and find a restaurant that's open, but you're not. So, you know, it's difficult because our hotel industry in the summer is typically based on tourism.
Yeah, so Chris, what I should point out here at the end is that
These, you know, the fact that these outbreaks are on the farms and in those greenhouses is something that some people were telling me should keep those, that's where the closure should happen. That's where the province and the farms should be solving the problem, and that these communities should be allowed to reopen. Chris?
Thanks for this, Jacob. Jacob Barker live again. We are in Leamington for a special show, both Leamington and Kingsville, dealing with being stuck in stage 1, as we showed you last night. Windsor in stage 2. Those patios, those hair salons have been reopened. But a big part of all of this, and it was touched on in Barker's story there, the tension and the stigma. You have a section of the community that wants to reopen, and the other dealing with our Health Minister of Canada calling a crisis the migrant workers who have tested positive for COVID-19 at these farms. More than 470 workers who have tested positive for COVID-19, and 3 migrant workers who died after testing positive in Ontario. I had a moment with the mayor of Leamington, Hilda McDonald, today, and I put those questions to her, asking how she eases the tensions of what she calls the divide, the fear that may be among the city, and what more needs to be done by other levels of government.
Business owners are frightened. Business owners are worried about hanging on. I did reiterate that to the Premier when he called me the other night. I told him that he had certainly mentioned Windsor, Essex, and he had mentioned our agri-food industry, but he had forgotten to mention our small businesses. I'm very concerned for them. I was asking for money for financial aid, not in the form of a loan, but in some immediate funds to get them through what I would have thought would be 2 weeks. He assured me it wouldn't be that long, but we'll wait and see. But my people cannot hang on longer.
Specifically with the feds, what do you expect from them moving forward as it relates to agri-farm workers?
I want them to come down, and we spoke to Minister Haidu, by the way, this morning. I said, you need to come down, you need to get this in hand. We also have our ministries and agencies juggling for position, but no one is willing to take the bull by the horns. They will do a portion or a piece of their bailiwick, of their authority, but we need somebody, we need one entity to take it by the horns and say, this is how it's going to be, this is what we're going to do, we're going to pay for it, and encapsulate that industry so that there isn't a threat of the virus coming back into any community. It's not just Leamington, it's beyond. There are people from the city of Windsor that work in the agri-food industry. They're going back. So in order for us not to, all of us go back to stage 1, the biggest entity of all needs to come down here and needs to take it by the horns and go from there.
The agri-farm sector is a big player in Windsor, Essex financially. We've seen their names on buildings, the support that they show to the community. What responsibility do they have now, considering what's happening with the migrant farm workers and the community being stuck in stage 1?
It's a tough question. I don't really know what they can do other than saying, you know what, we're going to promote the testing with our employees. They have always been partners in the community, financial, big philanthropic partners. Right now there is a divide between them and the urban or the business to say what they should do other than embracing the idea of testing and of keeping their workers safe and of keeping the community safe. I think that's the best that they can do, and I think we would see the fears die down, and I think we would see a return to better relationships. But if they don't do that, I'm a little bit fearful for the personal relationships within our community, and I don't like to see that.
You've spoken about the divide and the fear that comes with what's happened here. How do you try and cool down that tension?
It's really difficult. I've said this a number of times. This job during COVID has me dancing between pylons that are stuffed with explosives. I see all sides of the story. That I've always been able to do that. I find that almost the less said, the better, because I want my residents to know that there's nothing to be afraid of. I want the growers to know that we appreciate the industry, and to encourage the divide is not a good thing. So I try and speak in more neutral terms. I certainly have my opinions, but I need to be the calm. I need to be the calm in this storm, so that's what I'm trying to do. It, I believe, sometimes comes across that I'm not doing anything, but I'm working behind the scenes all the time with the partners to try and get the message sent subtly and go from there.
That's the mayor of Leamington, Hilda McDonald, talking with me about what she needs the governments to do next, both the provincial and the federal government, as well as trying to ease the tensions that she's seeing happening out here in Kingsville and Leamington because of the fact they're still stuck in stage 1 of the province's reopening plan. Now, this big push that's happening locally is making its way to the federal government. Dale Molnar now with an update on what they're doing as this crisis continues.
We know we need to do better by migrant workers. Temporary foreign workers in Canada have an extremely important role to play in our agricultural systems.
This was the Prime Minister's response to a report released by the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change earlier this month. The report outlined such things as poor living conditions, lack of access to health care, and poor nutrition. The group was asking the government to give the workers permanent residence status, which would give them more protections under the law. Today, the same group is demanding the federal government stop the provincial government from allowing asymptomatic workers from continuing to work. The federal government must stop the province from proceeding with this directive that jeopardizes public health and give permanent status to workers so they can refuse unsafe work, says their executive director.
And I think that the terms and conditions that have been brought forth are fair, given especially this fact that we have an international blemish now with regards to this.
Meanwhile, Mayor Drew Dilkins, Mayor Nelson Santos of Kingsville, and Mayor Hilda McDonald of Leamington have also called on the federal government for action. After meeting with Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland yesterday and Health Minister Patty Hayju today, the mayors are asking the federal government for 3 things: increased testing of the farm worker population, immediate need to isolation and recovery facilities within Essex County, and improving living conditions and providing a long-term plan to address housing for migrant workers.
You have 8,000 people. Many of them transfer back and forth. Some live on the farms, of course, but many are coming back into the community here in the city of Windsor to live each and every night as well. And so there's a risk to us, and I want to deal with the situation in a way that helps their communities, but also helps my own.
The city is housing up to 45 workers in an undisclosed hotel and providing medical care and food as well. This afternoon, a spokesperson for Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough responded to CBC requests, saying they have implemented a number of short-term measures, including having inspectors work with local health units to assess farms where outbreaks have occurred, established a dedicated liaison officer at Service Canada to take complaints of non-compliance, and educating employers of their responsibilities under the law, but no word on permanent resident status. Minister Hayju says she is working on the Windsor-Essex outbreak and says the story of the way the workers are treated would curl your hair and is a national disgrace. MPP Brian Massey wants to see action instead of words.
Because they're important for our economy, they're important for our communities, and there's no reason that we can't turn this around and make it a better thing for everybody.
The mayor is expecting a response from the federal government within days. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Sticking with Windsor, the City Council's approved a pilot project that will allow the businesses in the Walkerville area to set up curbside cafes. Parking spaces will be used to set up dining areas. The BIA has been pushing for the project after months of financial losses for the sector because of the pandemic. Now, this is something that you'll see the downtown Windsor BIA celebrating as well, the approval of new patio permits for businesses in the city's core.
A year ago, forget about it. Somebody sitting out there with a drink, I'm going to jail. You know what I mean? That's what's happening. That is the difference here. I'm losing my license. I'm losing everything I had because somebody was sitting in front of my bar having a drink. Now we're encouraging it. You know, it's a great, and that to me, as a business owner downtown, that is what's special about today.
You can certainly hear the passion there from that owner. They say that this move will allow for restaurants to implement some new ideas this summer. It could last for years after the pandemic comes to an end. We turn now to another story that's being called a milestone moment for Canadian fans of RuPaul's Drag Race. Next week, the very first season of Canada's Drag Race starts, and it includes 2 people from the Windsor area. They told us what this means for them and how they feel about getting that big shot.
We're looking for Canada's first drag superstar.
My reaction when I was told that I was going to be on Drag Race, I cried. Oh my God, I sobbed. I wasn't expecting it, and it just hit me. And then I kind of went into a haze, and I went out for lunch with my partner to celebrate, and I kind of just sat there like, okay. It was crazy. Oh my God.
I thought it was a trick. I remember like they when they had told us, I was just like, no, you're lying. Like, no, this is a prank show. It's not true. Like it didn't feel like actually real until you like walked onto set. Like I thought it was just fake the whole time. Like even preparing, I was just like, I am spending all of this money and I don't know if this is even real.
I just wanted to be myself as much. Obviously I wanted to win. I want to win. And I just, yeah, it's just when I went into it wanting to be myself as much as I could be.
The same as Boaz, you just want to show exactly who you are and you want to be as true to yourself as possible and just hope that people kind of accept that and love it.
When the show was announced, there was a switch flipped where people just upgraded everything, myself included. Everyone was so gagged about this announcement they wanted to get on the show. So everyone put rhinestones on their costumes and started wearing styled hair, and that really kind of made the bar higher in a sense. And now that the show is going to be airing, it's I think there's going to create a lot more opportunities for Canadians, obviously, within the industry. More parties, more events. It's going to make it more mainstream in Canada, and it's just growing so much now. It's like now it's growing faster than ever.
And you can read more about that story on our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Just a reminder, we are live in Leamington. You're looking at the iconic Tomato Visitor Information booth. And we are talking today specifically about how this region, both Leamington and Kingsville, are dealing with being stuck in stage 1 as the agri-farm sector deals with what's being called a crisis by our Minister of Health in Canada, migrant workers testing positive for COVID-19. Coming up, Nick Sirkovich will have a look at the weather when we come back. And welcome back to CBC Windsor Live at 6. We are in Leamington tonight taking a closer look at what's being described as a crisis by the Minister of Health for Canada, saying that the number of people who have tested positive for COVID-19 in the agri-farm sector is concerning and something that needs to be isolated and stopped, according to local leaders. I want to just go over what the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit has as far as the numbers here of where these COVID-19 cases are testing positive over the last 7 days. In Kingsville alone, there's been 55% of the cases that tested positive over the last 7 days and 31% here in Leamington. Now, if we look over the entire course of this pandemic, Windsor now sits at 41% of our total caseload. Leamington is at 31% and Kingsville is at 18%, the rest of the county making up the remainder of the cases. But it really shows you how this story has switched from a city issue to one that is here when Leamington and Kingsville are stuck in stage 1 of that reopening plan. Now, a big part of that stage 2 that gets to is the patios reopening. Windsor was certainly having fun last night, and Nick Sirkovich joins us with the weather now to show us what the weekend looks like.
Well, Chris, some nice weather as we head into the long-range forecast, but a little bit of rain to deal with for the first, say, 12 to 24 hours of it. So we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk temperatures first. 26 degrees is where Windsor is sitting, basically the same across southwestern Ontario. When you factor in the humidity, though, it felt closer to about 30 in some places across the region. Temperature-wise, more or less uniform right across the board. There's a look at what we're expecting through the day today. So as I mentioned, humidity somewhere in the neighborhood of about 31 degrees, 30 out toward the London area. Now, there is the risk for some severe weather as we head through tonight. Mostly strong winds and heavy rainfall is what we're talking about there. However, that is going to come through the later evening overnight periods. So system out toward the west is what's moving in. And as it does, we're expecting to see rain come in, at least the bulk of the rain coming in, closer to about 10 p.m., give or take. And then that lasts through the overnight period, showers and thunderstorms, tapers off in the morning, and then as we head through the afternoon, scattered showers and thunderstorms possible across the region. By Sunday, looks pretty good. We get back into the sunshine, and we stay in the sunshine basically right through. So how much rain can you expect with this? I wouldn't put a lot of stock in these numbers, but we're talking about generally 20 to 30 millimeters of rain, locally heavier amounts though in some of the stronger thunderstorms. Overnight tonight, we're looking at temperatures dropping down to about 20, 21 degrees. Now, with the humidity, it's still going to feel closer to about 25, so a lot of humidity building in. Tomorrow, humidex values around 35 to 37, temperatures close to 30, and again, you've got those scattered thunderstorms through the day. Not a washout tomorrow, but scattered thunderstorms through the day. So that's what we're looking at in the long-range forecast, and I did promise you that we'd have some nice weather in there. We're looking at 29 degrees tomorrow, but basically stays as 29 degrees. It's the sunshine that returns from Sunday right through until Wednesday. Chris.
Always appreciate a breakdown like that. We will have more on the situation here in Leamington and Kingsville as they continue to be frustrated by being stuck in stage 1, according to the business owners and municipal leaders that we've spoken to at CBC Windsor. And welcome back. This is CBC Windsor News at 6, live in Leamington. Leamington and Kingsville, still stuck in stage 1. You talk to business owners, but you live in Windsor. You've seen what it's like to go to stage 2. What sticks out for you?
Yeah, Chris, last night I was out. I saw the patios open in Windsor and the life sort of coming back. And you come back out here and it's a stark difference what you see. And you just kind of remember what that was like. And I've actually gotten to know the area a little bit more. It's pretty new here, so getting to meet the businesses and seeing how they feel about things was interesting. Everybody just wants to see a constructive end to this, at least the people that I've spoken to, not just the businesses, but last week I also got the chance to speak with some agri-farm workers. They want to be here, they want to work safely. The businesses want them to continue doing what they do and be safe. And of course, everybody just wants to stay clear of this virus and get rid of it, like everybody everywhere.
That's the big thing, right? The reasons why people are trying to protect themselves and they're calling for more action seems to always come back to that point. It's just the idea of safety, the one that everybody kind of sticks home. Thanks again for everything tonight, Jacob. A live show, as you can tell. I appreciate your work on this story. The one thing we want to leave you here with is some photos of what life has been like. But before we go, we just want to remind you that, of course, we will have coverage of everything that happens over the weekend. We have been hearing from people that there will be more moves of support for migrant workers in the Windsor-Essex community, and you'll be able to find details about that on our website as it happens, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for watching. Again, a special edition of CBC Windsor live in Leamington, as this community in Kingsville are one of the last 2 communities in Canada, really, where they've eased those restrictions to enter those reopening stages for stuff like haircuts, patios, and businesses to reopen.